Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Thursday night. I'm your host, Mario Selka, and this is a weekly news roundup. Tonight we begin in Midtown Manhattan. The annual Model United Nations New York Conference took place, and I had a chance to spend a few days with students as they transformed into UN delegates.
With great pleasure and anticipation for the week to come, that I am happy to declare NMUN New York 2015 open.
And with that, the annual Model United Nations New York Conference commenced. The one-week NMUN conference provides students with an opportunity to represent a country as a delegation simulating the real United Nations. 3,000 students from nearly 49 countries all over the world gathered in New York. The students must stay in character and act as actual delegates, giving speeches on their topics, representing the countries assigned to them.
Colombia is working with Mexico, Afghanistan, Netherlands, among others, on developing a detailed and concise working paper.
The conference also gives students an opportunity to work with people from all walks of life.
Amazing to be able to meet people from Germany, there are people from France, from Czech Republic.
We had the honor of speaking with NMUN Secretary General, who had this to
everyone on the
say.
floor negotiating and writing papers and debating. It's really nice to see that we have people of our age ready to sacrifice a whole week and a lot of sleep to just get together and debate about topics and then negotiate and vote on their resolutions. So it's really nice to see that we have a generation ready to act.
The Secretary General also had this message for future delegates.
By getting involved, we learn from each other, because here we're exposed to people from different cultures, different countries, different languages, but also representing opinions that have to be sometimes completely opposed to the opinions that we're supposed to represent. So it's very eye-opening.
The conference also gives students an opportunity to simulate real-life issues.
Dealing with the world's most pressing issues is always tough, and it's just interesting to see what actual diplomats go through in solving these issues with ISIS or hunger, women, mutilation, and stuff like that.
After a long few days of intense negotiating and resolution writing, students headed to the actual United Nations to take part in voting procedures and closing ceremonies. The students had the opportunity to vote on their resolution and sit in the very seats that world leaders sit in during UN sessions. Later that afternoon, students heard from the Deputy Secretary General, Jan Eliason, who told the delegates to keep up the great work. Colombian delegate reflected on the actual visit to the General Assembly room.
Being in the General Assembly, the whole ambiance of the closing ceremony changed. The room had a glow to it. It had a different feel to it. You feel like you were part of something.
By a very short majority, the meeting is adjourned until next year.
And with that, the NMUN New York Conference concluded. There is also a new international conference set for this fall, and that will be held in the Czech Republic in November. In addition to the international conference, the annual fall conference in Washington, D.C. will also be held in October, and the New York annual conference will be back next spring. And the Holocaust may have occurred 70 years ago. However, one college professor is making sure that history is never repeated nor ever forgotten. We went to Riverdale to find out more. Dr. Mehnaza Fridi is an assistant professor of religious studies at Manhattan College in the Riverdale section of the Bronx. She also runs the Holocaust, Genocide, and Interfaith Education Center. The center's mission is to promote Jewish, Catholic, Muslim discussion and collaboration. In the fall of 2014, Dr. Afridi created a fellowship that is a partnership with a local yeshiva. The fellowship partners Manhattan students with yeshiva students.
We partnered together to do a year of events and conversations between survivors, a yeshiva student, and a Manhattan College student. And we're hoping this will culminate into a project, maybe a DVD, and more archive material for the center.
Fellowship student Lanisa Patterson says that the fellowship is important in understanding the effects of the Holocaust.
I learned coming to MC was that the Holocaust is not just a Jewish problem, it's a world problem. And even taking Nazi Germany and the Holocaust now, I've learned that that statement could not be any more true.
Bridging Faith Through Holocaust allows for Holocaust survivors to keep their stories alive.
I've heard the stories of people who've actually lived in camps. I've heard stories from hidden children. In fact, one of the survivors that I work with closely, she was actually a child during the Holocaust, and due to her mother, she was saved and she was kept hidden from the Nazis. Everyone has a story.
Dr. Afridi explains the importance of the fellowship as a way of never forgetting the past.
As people were killed because of their faith, but because of just being Jewish. And I think we all have to learn that lesson no matter what. And it's time for us to keep recording these messages because these survivors are not going to be around, and giving our students that experience today.
To learn more about the fellowship, visit hgimanhattan.com. And finally, if you have been driving around New York, then you know it can be difficult navigating around potholes. Winter is over, and that means plenty of potholes to go around. The cold and snowy winter required plenty of salt to keep the roadways clear of dangerous icy conditions. And we know salt opens up sometimes enormous potholes, creating tough driving conditions. And those potholes can also affect your wallets. Replacing damaged tires is not cheap. But there is some good news. Department of Transportation crews have begun repairs across the city. Repairs will continue through September. And to also report potholes in your area, call 311. At least the snow is gone, and that is always good news. Thanks for joining. That will do it for this week's News Roundup. I'm Mario Salka. We thank you for watching. We hope to see you back.